Hey everyone, Chad Shimabukuro here. Wanted to give you a compliance update, which is super important. So, what we're going to talk about today is inventory lists. We're going to talk about comps, and then we're going to talk about listings. So, to start things off on the inventory list, I'm going to pull up a purchase contract here. If you can see on the purchase contract, I'm going to scroll through to section E4, which is the inclusion of furnishings, inventory of furnishings, and so forth. Just something to be aware of in this section is if you are representing and drafting, representing a buyer, drafting this offer, there is a component in there that allows the buyer and or the seller to terminate if that inventory list isn't provided. But beyond that, it's not real property, it's personal property. So you have to be real cautious about how you handle that. What we absolutely recommend, and while the contract doesn't require an inventory list on an official form that's signed, we absolutely recommend in that process of being as detailed as possible, taking photos, having a description of what that is, what that unique item might be, whether it's furniture with a description on it, maybe the manufacturer's name if it appears anywhere on there. If it's an appliance, you can put the serial number on there. If it's a piece of art, which then gets a little bit trickier because if there's a value to it. But if it's a piece of art, take a photo of it, be really descriptive as to what it is. The issue from a legal perspective is there's really little that can be done contractually if someone doesn't perform in with this in regards to the inventory, because all it does allow you to do is to terminate if you don't receive the inventory list. But what we've seen is upon closing, one party, usually the seller, is in breach because they didn't deliver the item that was agreed to. And if there's nothing signed, what they're leaning into is I didn't agree to this, I didn't sign it, or what have you. So you ought to put together an inventory list with both parties' signatures on it. Both the buyer and the seller, they're agreeing to this very detailed list with photos and so forth, and educate your buyer to know that they may be asking for what they deem to be $20,000 or $30,000 worth of personal property. But if the seller doesn't perform, that's hard to go after them because it's not in the realm of real estate. It's not in the realm of what is in the contract. And also, something to keep in mind is if you have a lender involved, so if the buyer is getting financing, the lender is going to want to see this. They may have an additional requirement, a bill of sale or something like that, that's going to indicate that there's zero value. And that's going to be real tricky to go, you owe me some sort of financial damage if you didn't perform by delivering this couch that's worth, $5,000, when in fact there's another document that said that it's worth zero. So it's something to be aware of, that you can't have, both sides to that sometimes. So we have to just educate our clients if we represent the buyer. When you represent the seller, same thing in reverse is you're going to want to make sure that it is clear as to what the buyer is asking for on that inventory list, but also specifically educating the seller to let them know that they have to deliver that. So if it says 5 items and these are the specific items, that the seller, upon moving out, know to leave those items as agreed to. So that's the first thing that we're seeing a lot of is if there's inventory or personal property that should be conveyed in the sale. That's one. So let me take this down. The other one is with regards to inventory lists, and the other one is comps. So comps are required, right? It's been required as of May 15th, 2023. So it's been required now for, almost half a year. And yet we're still seeing it pop up in compliance. And so here's the deal. And I just wanted to explain as to why it's needed and why it's important. As everyone knows, the market has shifted. It's no longer as hot as it was during COVID 2021, 2022, and so forth. So it's really important that we, as fiduciaries, educate our clients. And educating our clients simply means that we're informing them of what the market is doing, where it's headed, and so forth. And if you're representing a buyer, it's important before they sign or along the same time frame that they're signing the purchase contract, that they're signing comps that you've presented to them that shows if ever it went down to, God forbid, a deposition or court or anything like that, it can show any party that might be inquiring to it that you've educated your client, you've shown them what the market is doing currently, you've shown them comps. Now, could that change? So, in other words, you represent a buyer, and the comps at the moment suggest that the asking price or the price that they're going to be writing an offer on is warranted. Sure, and then 3 or 4 months later, maybe even after closing, that price has changed. Maybe it's gone down, maybe it's settled or normalized a little bit or compressed. Um, the good news is you have something to go off of if that client or buyer ever comes back to you and says, you convinced me or talked me into making this purchase. You can say, absolutely not. Here's the comps that not only did I show you, but it's signed. So what we're seeing in compliance when Rob, our compliance officer, is asking for these things is the dates that the buyers are signing them are either after conveyance or well after the purchase contract had been signed and executed. And that completely defeats the purpose, because what we're trying to do is show the buyer these are the comps as of the time that we're writing that offer. So we're educating them, because if we do it after the fact, could they change their mind and decide maybe not to purchase it as a result of that information? They could, and we want to make sure that we're educating them. On the listing side, that also, to be honest with you, is an absolute no-brainer. Is where do you price it at? How did you arrive at that price? And granted, there might be, and this is also goes to this too, is what if a client says, I think my home is worth $1 million, and the comp suggests that they're not. The comp suggests that they're 900. Well, first and foremost, you probably shouldn't take that listing. But let's pretend for a moment, from a strategic perspective, you decide that you're going to give this seller an opportunity to see what the market, is dictating in terms of if there's a demand or an appetite for $1 million when it's 100,000 in this example priced over. Well, what the comps will show is that if you've educated them that the prices show that it's 900 when in fact they're instructing you to list it at $1 million. So if it sits on the market for 3 or 4 months, they also can't get upset at you to say, hey, you overpriced it. You can say, remember, I showed you the comps. At the time of taking the listing, it was worth 900. I showed you the comps for that. You've instructed me to go for $1 million or list it for $1 million, and we have the documentation to show that. So it's really, really important. And in a shifting market, know that people can tend to get a little bit litigious, and we want to make sure that we're doing our jobs, educating our clients, guiding them in the right direction. And if things take a turn and they file a complaint or whatever it is, an ethics violation, whatever the matter is, we are properly not only educating our clients, we're being good fiduciaries, but also we're documenting exactly the dialogue that we're having and conversations that we're having. So comps are super important to have. They are not something that we want to have or include into the file after that trigger date. That trigger date is the time they sign the purchase contract or the time that they sign the listing agreement. Those are the dates that we want it to be lined up with. That's when you should be having that conversation. We don't need the comps in a special format. You can do a full CMA report. You can do just a one sheet off of MLS. Whatever it is, put a signature or initials or date or whatever it is on the comps, so that we have something of record to say that not only did the client see it, they reviewed it as well. As of 1/1, so I'm going to give a little bit of a leeway, a 45-day ramp up. There are constant violators of this rule that will kind of go back in time and say, hey, seller or buyer, can you sign this after the fact? So as of 1/1/2024, I'm instructing the brokers not to sign any DocuSign or any contracts whatsoever if comps aren't already included in that. No exceptions. There's just too many people that we're chasing down, and it really is not a difficult thing to get comps. Super, super easy. It shouldn't be difficult at all. If you don't know how to do it, please ask me, and I'm happy to teach you or work with you on that. So next topic, inventory list we talked about, comps we talked about. Listings are a little bit tricky for some people. So I'm going to pull up a listing agreement real quick here. This is a listing agreement, and if you scroll down to section A11, right there at the very top, it's addenda that's to be made part of the contract. Addenda to be made part of the contract. So what do you need for a listing in section A11? There's a few things that you need. We're going to talk about each one of them so that it avoids confusion. The first thing that you're going to need is the listing advisory notice. The listing advisory notice. I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to show you what that document looks like. It looks like this. It's a brand new document. It's already in zip forms under templates under the KW library. So if you don't even have a KW library in zip forms, that means you're not connected to our zip forms. So super important to get with Carrie, our tech advisor here, to make sure that you're connected properly. And then you'll see every document that we have, which makes it fillable, which makes your life a lot easier as well. So here's what the listing advisory document looks like. What did it replace? Well, it replaced a few things. I'm going to go through a couple of them. So here's a question. What did the listing advisory replace? You notice we had other required documents in there previously, and we're not requiring those same documents. The reason is we're trying to make it easier for you, not to have a list of all these addenda that go along with the listing agreement. So here's to make it easier for you. It replaced the KW standard addendum. It replaced, I love the emojis. It replaced the representation of more than one buyer or seller. It replaced the first Hawaii title ABA. And it replaced the need for dual or designated agency disclosure. Just know, guys, it doesn't replace the need for these items if you open up escrow. It replaces the need for these items as you're opening up or executing a listing agreement. It should be self-explanatory. So I'm going to go back to this document. This document with the listing agreement, listing advisory notice. If you look here, what we have in there is some disclosure items. We have representation of more than one buyer or seller, which is why we don't have that document, because it replaces that. It mentioned short-term rental disclosure. That doesn't satisfy the need to get one, but it has that in there, mention of that in there. Some hazardous materials, some future value issues, some ABA things in there. And then you'll notice the dual and designated agency disclaimer disclosure in there. So that's what it replaced. We were trying to make your life a little bit easier so you don't have to have all these different documents, that you have one, and this document's easy to follow. So when you go down and you work with your client and you're explaining what this is, it's very easy to go down. Now, if you have a listing and that listing turns into a dual agency, meaning that you represent both the buyer and the seller, or a designated agency where you represent the seller, but another KW agent is representing the buyer, will you need those appropriate forms to open up escrow? The answer is absolutely. Will you need a KW standard addendum? Absolutely. If you use First Hawaii Title, would you need a First Hawaii Title ABA? Absolutely. This is for the sole purpose of executing the listing agreement. So hopefully that answers that question. It shouldn't be that difficult. Again, it replaces the KW standard addendum, representation of more than one buyer or seller, First Hawaii Title ABA, and dual and or designated agency. Next thing that is needed, so go back, is what do we need? We need a listing advisory notice. We need a short-term rental disclosure for Honolulu, so Oahu, Honolulu County, which is all of Oahu. And we need something called a warranty waiver. Why do we need a warranty waiver? What is it? What is going on? If you're confused or don't understand, let me explain it for you. This is the brochure for the warranty waiver. And by the way, if you use zip forms, if you select a template, I've already pre-loaded, pre-populated all this information in a zip form. So if you're not already using our templates, please do, because it makes your life easy. If you're an agent that is always trying to find the PDF or the documents, you're just going about it a really, really difficult way unnecessarily. If you use the templates that I've already created, any updates to standards for the brokerage, I've already made that change in the template itself. So here's what that document is and why would you even need it. So America's Preferred Home Warranty, we have a relationship with them. It is offering the seller and or buyer a home warranty. It's asking the seller, would you like to purchase a home warranty for your listing, or would you like to purchase a warranty for a prospective buyer? We don't expect them to. And probably in most cases they won't, which is more than fine. Here's what that brochure looks like and what it covers. Here's the most important thing though. On page 2, on the bottom, if you can see right there on the bottom, it says waiver. So let's say that you present this to the seller says, I'm not spending whatever, $300, $400, $500, $600 on a warranty for the buyer. But by the way, why would they want a warranty? The warranty covers them too while in escrow. So if anything should happen while it's being listed and extending to when they're in escrow, there's a protection and a warranty that's available to them that they can have repairs done at a very minimal cost. So that's still highly beneficial to them. But let's pretend that you present this to them and they say, no, I do not want a warranty. They just sign in that area there where it says waiver. And then there's another document that you'll have, which is this, a data collection form, which you fill out. You fill out to your best of your ability. If there's information on here, such as what it is, single family, if it's a condo, what the address is, if there's any cooling, refrigerator, all that kind of stuff in there. And what does it do for you? Well, it adds up to, if you notice on there, right there, it adds $37.50 towards your E&O deductible should there be a claim. So basically, let's say that you have this listing and you offer the seller to purchase a home warranty, whether for themselves and or for the potential prospective buyer, to which they pass. They say, no, we're not interested in buying a warranty for them. No problem. Sign the waiver. They're not paying for anything. It's not obligating them to do anything. They just waived it. They waived the opportunity, but you presented them with it. You've collected some data, some very easy information, and then submitted it. And let's say you list it, it closes, and then 12 to 16 months later, there's an issue that arises whereby the buyer is suing the seller and the brokerage, which happens to be us in this example, for some non-disclosure issue or whatever that triggers our E&O. Well, there's an E&O premium, and just by having the warranty signed, the waiver, the data collection form signed, there is $37.50 knocked off of that, the deductible for the E&O, which is a no-brainer, more than worth it. Doesn't cost you anything, doesn't cost the seller anything. It's a data collection, which is super, super important. So wanted to mention that as well. That is absolutely a requirement. It helps the brokerage. It helps you personally, because who wants to be on the hook for any kind of non-disclosure issue? So it offsets the costs of that. So again, what is needed for listings? It is listing advisory notice, which we discussed. It is short-term rental disclosure for Honolulu County, which is all of Oahu. And the warranty waiver, which is a couple of documents, as I'd mentioned before. So if you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to me. You can email me at chadshima@kw.com. You can text me, which is always a good idea to get in touch with me at 808-754-5800. You can call me as well. And I hope that answers your questions with regards to compliance. If you need me, call me, and I hope you guys have